Hello friends, this is Dayal Chakrabortty and welcome to Pegasus. Today in this particular video I will introduce you with literary theory, and this will be a very brief introduction because if the introduction is too long the entire class will be boring, because literary theory initially is very hard to understand. So very briefly and in a lucid way, very vivid manner, I will introduce you with literary theory. What is literary theory and what is the origin of literary theory, how it has been developed throughout the world. I will tell a story of it. If we talk about the origin of literary theory, we have to go back to the time of Plato, Aristotle, Horace, Longinus, meaning the classical critics. The genre which we know as literary criticism started with them, started with the classical masters like Plato, Aristotle, Horace, Longinus. And literary criticism was a part of the creative process. When literature was written, when literature was created, with that creative process, parallelly the journey of literary criticism began in the hands of those masters like Plato, Aristotle, Horace, Longinus, etc. And later on it continued. It continued with the hands of Sir Philip Sidney, P.B. Shelley, John Dryden, Alexander Pope, Dr. Samuel Johnson, everyone, and then after that T.S. Eliot, F.R. Lewis, William Emerson, we know all of them. So this genre of literary criticism is a part of the creative process. They both run parallelly, and that is why in that sense literary criticism is twine born. It is twine born with literary creation. But as a branch of study, literary criticism is concerned with defining, classifying, expounding, and evaluating the works of literature. But in the last 30 years, the story has been changed. The story of literary criticism has been changed. Why? Because due to the increasing exposure, due to the availability of books in the last 30 years, due to more freedom to the readers have become much more critical. Readers have become much more adventurous, much more exploratory in their thinking about literature, in their thinking about literary appreciation and interpretation. And from this particular area, literary theory started its journey. Now if we are going to discuss about literary theory, we have to know the definition of it. What is literary theory? And if we are trying to give a definition of literary theory in a single sentence, we can say literary theory is a kind of speculation which may be true or may not be true. So theory is a kind of speculation which we can create, which we can make in our mind, which may be true, may not be true, meaning which has a kind of freedom, a liberty. Theory is giving us that liberty, and that is why literary theory is so important. Literary theory is so interesting because it gives us that freedom to analyze a text. Look at the word, use of the word speculation. The word speculation has come from the word specs, meaning the specs which we wear in our eyes. So while we are reading a text, we are not reading the text by our own eyes, visualizing the text by our own eyes, but by wearing a specs. Suppose I am taking the name of a theory, that is Marxism. When I am reading a text, for example Macbeth, when I am reading Macbeth and I am wearing a specs of red color, that means that I am applying the theory of Marxism on the text Macbeth. Okay, so literary theory is not only a speculation which may be true, may not be true. In a very sophistical manner, we can say it is the linguistical, epistemological, methodological foundation of literary criticism, which I have already told you that literary theory started its journey with literary criticism. When literary criticism has become or got a kind of free movement, literary theory started its journey from its first milestone. So literary theory can be called a sophisticated version of literary criticism. It is also a criticism, but in a sophisticated way. That's why if we say that literary theory is a linguistical foundation of literary criticism, that is also right. We can say it is an epistemological and methodological foundation of literary criticism, that is also correct. Literary theory concerns with language. If we read the theories like structuralism, post-structuralism, we will see that they all are concerning with language. I will tell all these things in the later videos. It also concerns with epistemology and the love of wisdom. Now, if we talk about when the literary theory was born, we have to go back to 1950s, after the First World War, after the Second World War, with the emergence of the popular culture, with the emergence of the popular literature, when the common mass, the common readers started to study, started to read books, and a huge area of mass reader, huge area of mass writer started to read and started to write, the entire scenario of literature has been changed, and they had become so much adventurous, so much exploratory in their reading and in their thinking, that literary theory started its journey. After new criticism, which is considered as the last milestone of literary criticism, with the emergence of new criticism, the journey of literary theory begins. Meaning, new criticism can be considered as the last milestone of literary criticism, and new criticism can be considered as the first milestone of literary theory. After that, there comes formalism, sometimes Russian formalism, and after Russian formalism there comes structuralism, post-structuralism, deconstruction. In another way, a separate way, Marxism was there. Postmodernism is appearing as an umbrella theory. Then the critics, the readers have become so much exploratory, they started to talk about nature. There came eco-criticism, different areas of gender theories like feminism, queer theories, etc. So they all are talking about all these things, and the entire story got its time, particularly officially from 1950s to 1970s, and officially it is considered that theory emerges in 1968. Now, if we want to say that what is the relationship between literary criticism and literary theory, we have to say that there are hardly any difference between literary theory and literary criticism. Literary criticism comes first, literary theory emerges in the 20th century France, and from France theory spreads in Germany, and from Germany it was spread throughout Europe. So officially theory emerges in 1968. After the emergence of the theory, literature is no longer read but studied. Literature was stopped to be read, but it was studied. No aesthetic pleasure was there, but only intellectual pleasure. The theorists started to apply their intellectual talent, not the aesthetic pleasure they want to derive from it, but they want to derive from it their intellectual pleasure. How much exploratory they have become, we can understand from it. Application of theory means exercise of intellectuality. When we are applying a theory on a text, it means that we are exercising our intellectuality on that text in order to discuss that text through the angles, different point of views, different specs, sometimes from Marxist angle, sometimes from gender's angle, meaning feminist angle or queer angles, LGBT issues, sometimes from structuralist angles, from post-structuralist angles. Sometimes we are reading a text via deconstruction. So different point of views have been appeared. These point of views or these specs are called theories. When we are reading a text, we are not reading a text directly, but we are analyzing the text or studying the text by wearing a specs. And these specs are none other than these theories, meaning different point of views have appeared. And as a result, literature is dead. Literature is dead. Because literature, what is literature? Literature which is giving us first entertainment, the aesthetic pleasure, that entertainment and aesthetic pleasure has gone with the emergence of literary theory. With the emergence of literary theory, we started to kill literature, post-mortem literature, and try to find out something which is applicable to the present condition, be it linguistical, be it cultural, be it political, be it something which is associated to the epistemological world of literature. Now, if we talk about how many types of theories are there, then we can find out that there are 4 types of points of view or 4 types of approaches in studying literature. What are the 4 types of approaches? First, context-oriented approaches. What are the theories which are included in these approaches? That I will tell you in the next slide. The second approach is text or language-oriented approaches. The third approach is author-oriented approaches. And fourth approach is reader-oriented approaches. These are the basic and the fundamental points of view or approaches. Now, I am going to discuss one after another. So, the first approach is context-oriented approaches. And in this context-oriented approaches, we are getting some contexts like psychological context, and in psychological context we will get the theory which we know as psychoanalytic theory. Then context of gender. In the context of gender we will get not one theory but several theories like feminist theory or the queer theories which are talking about the LGBT issues, lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgendered issue. Then the historical context approaches of the historical context. There we will get historicism, old historicism, neo-historicism. There we will get another theory, that is cultural materialism. Then other approaches are also there like colonial context. In the colonial context we will get the post-colonialism or we will get neo-colonialism. Then we will get socio-economic approaches. In the socio-economic context of theory, we will get the largest theory and which has a largest history, that is Marxism. And then last but not the least, in this first context-oriented approaches is the socio-cultural context. And in that socio-cultural context, we will get the theory which is myth criticism or archetypal criticism. And we will get another theory, that is dialogism. When we are talking about dialogism, the name of the theorist is coming is Mikhail Bakhtin, who is very much important, and I will talk about him in elaborate way further. Now, second approach, text or language oriented approaches. In the text and language oriented approaches, the theories which we will get is formalism. Formalism started its journey as a theory. Among all the theories, it is the first stoppage of literary theory. If literary theory is a train, then this train or this bus is stopping in the first bus stop, and the name of the bus stop is formalism. Then we will get obviously the practical criticism or new criticism with I. Richards, with F.L. Davis. Then we will get structuralism and stylistics, very important. And then post-structuralism and deconstruction. Now, all these theories are actually based on the text. They are not ready to analyze the content of a text, but they are going to discuss about language, they are going to discuss about the form, they are going to discuss about the structure, they are going to discuss about the narrative of the text, meaning it is clearly a language oriented approach, and these are the theories of it. And in the author oriented approaches, we will get classicism and humanism of various kinds. Nothing different it is, nothing difficult it is, which we will get classicism, which we will get humanism of various kinds. And in the last approach, that is the reader oriented approaches, we will get reader response theory, or many theorists call it reception theory, meaning how the reader is accepting the text, how after reading the text, studying the text, how a reader is responding. That is a reader response theory, and this theory started in French, then it emerged in Germany and in America. So this is all about the introduction of literary theory. If you have any kind of questions in understanding or learning this particular introduction of literary theory, you can ask freely in the comment boxes. I will try to answer them very quickly. Thank you very much.